So now that you guys saw how to fix an off-horizon panorama, now I'm going to get into a little bit different type of warping. This is more creative warping, and it is somewhat distorting reality, but subtly it can do quite a lot to the image. So I have this image of slot canyons in Utah loaded, and what I'm going to do first is Command J to make a background layer. And what I want to do before I do it is I want to make the slot canyons look narrower, and by doing that they will also look taller. And these rapids, I was in the water, freezing cold, and I was very close to them, but I want them even more so coming towards me, and as if they're really like coming into the camera. And what that will also do is will kind of give this crazy depth, because the falls will be coming so close to you, while this getting pushed together to get narrower will look further away. So it's going to cause a really, really cool depth to the image. So first thing I'm going to do is just edit, transform, warp, and I'm going to stick with just down here, and I'm just going to worry about the water for now, and I don't want it to really touch up here at all, so I'm going to really just stick with the bottom keys. And I'm just going to pull this down. And for the outer ones, I'm going to pull it down and at an angle, because I want them to give the reality that it's coming towards me. Make sure that doesn't come off. Now a little bit further up, pull this water down, and you can see the slot canyons start to get touched. So since I pulled all that down, I'm just going to pull those back up and just kind of inch this. Warping your photos like this is kind of a delicate balance of back and forth and just little subtle movements. Really like that rock in there. Alright, so I'm going to click enter and just see how this looks. Alright, so this water is almost, I really like this because the light comes down in the canyons, then this water comes around and it almost curves over to the right. And I think that is really cool, and I really like that. So that's also when I was pulling these rapids down, I was going slightly over this way. So let's see before and after. And I really, really like that. So that makes these canyons look taller, because they actually did come down just slightly while I was pulling down the rapids, and the rapids are really, really in your face. I mean, this rock isn't even in there, and this one's at the edge. And I just think that looks really, really cool. So next thing I'm going to do is Command Option Shift E for Merge Visible Layer, just so I have a fresh layer to work with. And now what I'm going to do is make a selection, and I'm going to include some of the rapids so I don't touch too much of it, but I don't want to include this part because I pulled that down for a reason. I'm going to come down to Edit, Transform, Warp, and all I'm going to do is push these closer together. I'm going to push in, and now it came out too much, so just going to fix that. Still pull this in as much as I can, get away with it at least. Alright, click enter, and first thing I'm going to do is check this line. I'm going to do Command D, deselect, was right here, and I think that's the rock. I don't see anything. So I think we did a really good job of not touching the bottom, and we can see a, oh, let's do a before and after, just this. So before and after. So those canyons, all we did was push them together, but when you push stuff together like that, and the same thing happens for mountains, when you do that, it actually makes them look taller, even though you're really just pushing them together, just because they look more vertical. So I think that looks really good. And now I'm going to show you before and after of everything. So before, which great image, don't get me wrong, but after you just have a whole lot of depth. You're in the water, you have these super tall canyons, you have a lot of nice levels in your photos and depth of just being in it, and then this looks very far back. So I really, really love that. Alright guys, so for this next image, I have a shot from Yellowstone at Grand Prismatic, which is right here. It's that little bit of green you're picking up. So right here, these ridges I think are super, super interesting, and I really like this spot in Yellowstone. But there's one thing about these ridges, is they all seem to be rooting from this corner right here and going out, and some of them, especially these ones, have this cool little angle pattern where they loop around at this last second. But all of these don't carry the same. So what I want to do for this image is I want to kind of all have them take this like kind of boomerang type thing where they come out and boom, right back. So I'm going to do some creative warping to try to accomplish this. Even the clouds, they kind of do it naturally themselves. You can see some patterns that are really cool, I think. So I'm going to do Command J to start this, and just because I, for now, don't want to touch the sky, I'm going to make a selection of generally what I want to affect, just down here. Come to Edit, Transform, Warp, and like I said with warping, it's very delicate, and you have to be very cautious in your movements. So sometimes I'll do stuff, and I'll look at it and just say, you know, that's just all wrong. So I'll delete it and start over. So it's just really trial and error and kind of getting where you like it to be. And also this corner is really dark, which was actually because I was using an ND filter, and I purposely didn't do lens corrections on this because I kind of like the darkness and mood it added, but right here is just too dark, so I'll pull that out as well. So I'm just gonna kind of pull them all out and then around, so I want them to kind of follow that, and I want to like make that boomerang a little bit more of an arch. So pull it out and wrap it around down here. Really want those guys to come down, but not too much. So that noise you're hearing is when I'm clicking outside of the selection, so you gotta be careful with that. Alright, now I'm gonna click enter on that. And I'm gonna Command D to deselect, and let's look at this. Before, after, and I think that accomplished exactly what I had said and what I wanted, but right here I really like, but this is just a little bit too bowed, so I'm gonna just Command J. I'm gonna just play with that a little bit more, see if I can get it a little bit better with what I like. Oops, still want to be on a selection though. Alright, so up here it's starting bowed too low, I think, so pull that up. And I think I'm going to have to fix some blending lines. Actually not bad, but I did make my horizon slightly off, so I'll fix that. But I think that helps because now it's like this weird U, it's too much, and that kind of balances that out nicely. So now what I'll do, one more copy of that, warp. I'm going to do the whole thing on this one because this, I just want to fix the horizon. And I like where that's at actually, so I'm just going to push this side up. Pull this over. So I'm going to take the three of these, Command G to put them in a group, call this warp, and now before and after. I think it gives this a really cool look, and it's not too unnatural because they already have this kind of crazy ridge curve line to it, and I'm just kind of accentuating it and making it look even kind of crazier than it already had. One thing I do notice is up here, I don't like that this little kind of like black border. So I'm going to do make a merge visible, Command Option Shift E and Command T. I'm just going to push that out. Enter. And I think that looks much better. So we have our before and our after. Alright guys, so for this image today, this is a photo I took out of a helicopter in Mount Assiniboine in Canada. And for this photo, above the other ones, I'm going to do a pretty drastic warp because I kind of want to change the entire frame of the image. As you can see, I already put a little bit of a Lightroom edit on it in here and try to make it look like sunrise when really it was about an hour or two after sunrise, so there wasn't as much color in the sky. But this image I really wanted to make just kind of a drastic, moody photo. So I'm going to warp a little bit heavier than I normally would. And I'm going to try a selective warp as well as just an overall warp. So to get started, just do Command J to make a background layer. And first thing I'm going to do is just edit, transform, and warp. And just kind of get general what I want to do first. So this kind of ridge line that goes across, and it comes out a little bit here, then down, then out, and back up. I want to kind of make this a nice U shape, and I want it to really frame the image, and I want it to be kind of a deep ridge that comes super down here, and it just frames this mountain. Additionally, I want to make this mountain look bigger and kind of pull it up, just to make it look taller and look more narrow and jagged, and I think it'll add to kind of the craziness of the image to start with. So first thing, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and then start pulling this ridge down, but just a little bit because I don't want to mess with the mountain too much. I'm just going to do this in little pieces. Push that back because this little part that pops out I want to try to level if I can. Pull this up and then come down. For now, I'm just going to click enter. So right there, we can see a huge before and after. So we have before, after, and just right away, it kind of better frames the photo. It makes this mountain look better, look taller. It puts this more in a position in the frame that I like it to be, and just this ridge already has a much better start to it. So looks in the before looks a little bit squished all in this little part of the frame, and here it just looks a little bit more well balanced, I think. So for each warp I do, I'm going to make a new layer just because I don't want to affect the previous warp, and if I want to delete anything it'll be just easier. So I'm going to do Command Option Shift E for merge visible layer. So now I'm going to make a selection just starting at the peak of this kind of U-shaped ridge line. I'm going to come up to Edit, Transform, and Warp, just play with this a little bit more. So I'm going to only really be using these three squares because it will be affecting this blending line. It shouldn't affect it at all, but if I do extreme enough warping it will slightly, but just so we don't have to kind of fix that up and clone that in and make it look seamless, I'm just going to try to mess with these three bottom squares. So I'm just going to try to continue warping to accomplish this nice U-shaped ridge that I was going for. Right here, this little part that comes out, I'm just going to pull this out just because I don't like that too much. I'm going to make that more balanced and flat. And click enter. Deselect. And now, before, after. That's a huge difference. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two layers, group them together, and just look at a total before and after. And one thing you can notice is these ridge lines are straight and flat, and these are nice and even kind of rocks. And after, you can see a little bit of curving from the warping, a little bit of curving out in different directions. So I'm going to attempt to layer mask this and kind of brush in what was there before. Alright, so down here, I know below there is a nice rocky formation, so I'm going to pull that in. I'm going to try to just hit the edge of it. And then blend it by just switching brushes, because of this part, that's a little bit more seamless. I'm going to make a copy of the background layer, put that on top. And what I want to do is align the rocks coming through the snow with no warp, and I want to align them right here, because I'm happy with this, I'm happy with this, but right here I'm still not too happy with how that looks. So I'm going to put the opacity of this to 50, just kind of try to line up these ridges for the most part. More so on the bottom, because that is where the extreme warping was. Yeah, that should be good. So for this group layer, I already have a layer mask because I was layer masking this part in. So what I need to do now is put this in another group, because now if I want to layer mask all of this in total, I don't want to do it on this layer mask. I want to do it on a fresh layer mask, so that's why I have to make a new group. So these ridges are pretty aligned with this copy of my background layer. So in this new group 2, I'm going to make another layer mask. Just check, so right here is where I'm going to be brushing in. Alright, and I'm going to take a black brush, 100% opacity, and before I do that, I'm going to make a selection to make it easier for me. That's good. I can collapse these now. Now that I'm back on my layer mask, 100% opacity, and just brush this in. Be careful I have to be careful for this, because right here it wasn't lined perfectly, because I was more so worried about this bottom part. So I'm just going to do this and be picking up my mouse repeatedly, so if I go over, I can fix that. Just make a merge visible layer, collapse these, and now we have before and after. So now I think we have definitely accomplished making this nice framing U-shaped ridge. The photo is more well balanced, where the image is taking up more of the frame rather than just a little piece in the middle. And now what I want to do is I want to make this peak a little bit taller and a little bit narrower. I already have my merge visible layer on top, but I'm going to do Command J to make a duplicate of it. And now I'm going to do Edit, Transform, Warp. And I'm just going to pull this up, and you can see it getting that peak, and it's not really affecting down here much. And then here, I'm just push in, and same with here. Just kind of do this a few times. And over here, I need to make sure that that comes out, so we don't need to do any manual blending. Pull that up a little bit more. I'm going to click enter. I think that's plenty. And now you can see the before and after. So even that more so helps fill the frame and the composition, because in the beginning, so we can, let me make a merge visible layer. You can see in the beginning, our entire frame was just right here. This is all the eye was looking at, and not much down here, not much up here. And now it's stretched. Now we have this really interesting ridge framing this photo, and it's really jagged, and then we have this peak coming up into the sky, and a lot more of the frame is taken up, and I think it overall just looks much better. With a little bit of warping, you can really change the whole dynamic of the entire photo.